Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Rangers Rabble, and welcome along to our SPFL review. Something a little different we do on a Monday night, normally around about 8 o'clock. It's normally JD that hosts, but he's phoned in sick. I think he's actually done a care. I think he's away to see Boyzone or take that or something.
I don't go and see Boyzone, Martin.
Oh, you went to see Boyzone. Don't try and kid yourself.
Don't be silly. That music's for people with no right in the head, and that's not me.
That is you. Yes, so hello and welcome. I'm Martin, of course, and I'm joined by Kerr and William. Kerr's already rudely interrupted. So, William, how are you?
I'm all good, mate. Aye.
Good, nice weekend of Scottish football action, was it?
I watched some of the games back yesterday, so it was actually some decent quality football, to be fair to the other teams in the league, and obviously, St Motherwell scored in the last minute, seeing like the crowd coming on the pitch and stuff like that. I suppose that's what it's all about, isn't it? That kind of last minute goal to secure a top 6 spot. It shows you what it means to the supporters as well as the players.
And what it means to the clubs financially as well, because we look at it from a Rangers point of view, and we probably don't appreciate just how much like $100,000 means to, like, say, Motherwell or a club like that. Before we get started, yes, hello everybody. This is the SPFL review. Most people tuning in, if not all people tuning in, are used to seeing us talking about Rangers. This is about the rest of the teams in the SPFL. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but stick around. You might learn something. Not off of me, but you might learn something off of Willie or Kerr. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, please do like and subscribe. I think we're about 100, just over 100 away for 5k. So please do subscribe there. If you're watching on Facebook, a wee like and a share, and Twitter, of course, a wee retweet, a like, and stick your comments in. So I'll just get to a couple of comments. We've got a brand new channel member, Jim Sloan. Thank you very much. If you want to become a channel member, of course, and receive custom emojis and badges and priority response to comments, the join button. Well, it's there somewhere. Good evening to Ewan Minton. How you doing, Ewan, buddy? Who else have we got? Ian Ross. How you doing, Ewan? It is good to be here again because I'm off all week. So, cheers. Who else we got? Davey. How you doing, Davey? Hi, Mum. So, yeah, CGM. As per usual, I watched absolutely none of the games of the weekend apart from this. Well, don't worry, CGM. That's why we're here. We'll take you through it all, and it's none of your sports scene shite. So there you go. There's only one place to start, guys, of course. It was the Edinburgh and Dundee derbies for the last games to decide top 6 and all that nonsense. Before we come to that, William, something me and you spoke about on the phone. This would have been probably the perfect opportunity to highlight what Scottish football has to offer, and yet not one of the games was on TV.
Yeah, look, I found that absolutely staggering. Especially, even just getting back to what I was talking about earlier on, like the Livingston Motherwell game, knowing that one of those teams was probably going to make the top 6, why not show that game live? Or if you're not showing that, then why not show the Edinburgh Derby? And if you're not going to show that, then show the Dundee Derby. It just blows my mind that we've got a television deal when we're not actually trying to help the product. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's no offence. I've watched some games over the last kind of couple of weeks, and I think out with the Manchester City Liverpool game, the standard isn't exactly unbelievable. I mean, I watched the Norwich Burnley game, and it was okay, but like these two teams are fighting in the relegation zone, and you're sitting going, I wouldn't watch that game normally, but because there was nothing else on, like, you'll sit and watch it. If there had been a Scottish game on, I would have probably rather watched that. And that's probably like the reality of Sky not really caring, other than if Rangers or Celtic are playing 90% of the time, which obviously from our point of view is a good thing, because you can watch any Rangers games if you can't get to them away from home. But I do find it staggering when it's the last game before the split that one of those games isn't live on television, especially the fact that 2 of them are derbies.
Mental, absolutely mental. Look, Davey makes a point here. SPFL getting everything wrong as usual. How not to promote our Scottish product? Tossers. I think that's a pretty fair evaluation.
Totally agree. Yeah, I mean, this season the league's been probably not where we're sitting at the moment, but the league's been quite exciting because there's only 4 or 5 points separates St Mirren at the bottom and Livingston. Livingston, Ross County Motherwell and 5th and 6th. Do you know what I mean? So for third down, it's been very exciting this season between all the teams because, like Willie said, 3 or 4 of them could have made the top 6, and it's a big deal for teams like Ross County and Motherwell and Livingston hitting the top 6 because teams like Aberdeen and Hibs aren't. So some of them should be on TV, but so obviously Sky don't want to put all the games on apart from it unless it involves Rangers or Celtic. BT Sport obviously the same because they feel we don't pull enough viewers. But I mean, I watch English football as you know, and some of it's guff to be fair. I prefer watching the Championship games, and I used to always watch the United games. But for this season, I only watch them because I like them. But if you're not a fan, you wouldn't watch it because it's absolutely rotten. So no, I agree. Some of these games should be on TV because they're probably more entertaining than some of the games. I mean, to me, United are showing Huddersfield Luton, which probably won't get a lot of views unless you're a Huddersfield or Luton fan. But it's not a game that's going to find me to TV. But Hearts and Hibs, I mean, I think that could bring folk in even from down south because everybody who knows who Hearts and Hibs are. I know Edinburgh Derby. So no, I think Scottish football, whoever controls this, don't know if it's the SFA or the SPFL, they've got to try and get it better for ourselves because we're not promoting our football anyway like we should.
CGM makes a point. Well, look, Sky ain't daft. Who is actually going to watch Livingston versus Motherwell in England? Look, on that, right? See if that's the case, why bother having Scottish football at all? You know, I get the Rangers Celtic thing. I get that. It's a big draw. Loads of people watch it. But if you're going to buy a product, use it.
Yeah, look, I mean, like, see, realistically, the only other thing you could do is that you literally give the teams their own television rights and they're allowed to sell them themselves. So, like, okay, I know Rangers and Celtic would probably get that, no bother. They could probably go anywhere and get, those games shown live because of the, the amount of people that watch the games. But like, you're not trying to tell me, and it's a fair point. I get what CGM saying, right? But surely there's still enough people in Scotland that would sit and watch that game because they know that it could potentially be somebody in the top 6 or even the Edinburgh Derby. Surely there's a couple of 100,000 people out there that would want to watch that game, like sort of throughout the world. Surely there's enough Hearts and Hibs fans out there to watch that particular game. I guess, like, it just kind of feels like if Rangers and Celtic aren't on these games, they don't really care. And like you see some of the things during the season where they'll have like their wee screen, like sort of prior to the day's fixtures, and they'll have like the wrong badge next to the wrong name or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're sitting on, it's no difficult, and it just kind of feels like we're a kind of second priority. But then why why pay the money? Because in reality, the 4 games they want to show are 4 Rangers Celtic games. And then also they want to obviously show whoever wins the league at the end of the season. So in their eyes, after the split, they've got like Celtic on the television 4 of the 5 games because that's who they obviously feel are going to eventually pick up the title.
Aye.
So that's Sky's big selling point. Like nothing else really matters. Whereas, like with the EPL, they would show the bottom 2 like 10 times a season. You know what I mean? Because they think the EPL is that great that people want to tune in and watch Burnley or Norwich. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, like a lot of the times, if there was another game on, I probably wouldn't. But Sky, because they pay so much money for the product, they always like show these games. If that was the case in Scotland, they'd be forced to do that as well, but they're not because the contract's basically look, you take the money and you do as you're told, and that's basically the end of it.
Well, Keir, right, okay, interesting question, right? We can sit here and blame the SPFL, but they've negotiated a deal with Sky. So should we be blaming Sky just as much as Neil Doncaster and his cronies for the poor coverage of Scottish football, or is it just purely on the SPFL?
Sky pay for a product so they can show what they want to show, can't they? It's up to us to get the best possible deal, and at this point in time, that's not the best possible deal for Scottish football. But we probably thought it was the only one we could get, Martin. I don't know what they pay, but I know it's less than what they pay for the English football for the women's side of the game down there. And Alfredo made a good point. I mean, he said he watches games for every league, and I do the same. I was watching a conference game the other week on BT Sport. So if there's any football, and I'll just turn it on. A lot of folk aren't like that. I just watch the team to support. But there's folk out there like myself that just watch any game of football, no matter who's playing. I just like to shove it on TV, even if it's in the background. If it's something that's on, I'll put it on the background, or if it's an interesting game, I'll sit and watch it. But I've always got some kind of football on the screen, and I think there's a lot more people like that. But we've never had the best deal for games up here, have we, for Sky or BT or anybody.
I thought BT care were slightly better than Sky. At least BT kind of showed an interest in the game. Sky don't. Sky don't care.
No, Sky don't care. No, Sky don't even care about the Championship in England, League 1 and 2. To be
No.
fair, everything's just Premiership orientated and the big six they call them. But even that can be. I know the City Liverpool game was decent yesterday, and it's probably one of the best games for a while. Even though I was watching that game hoping that both of them get beat, but it's.
But Kerr, you watch a lot of English football, right?
Aye.
I actually watched the Liverpool Man City game. I don't usually watch English football. But see, whenever I do, and it's a Super Sunday or something like that, and it's supposed to be two top teams, very, very rarely is it a decent game.
I know, I agree with you. And they have to build it up, don't they? They're paying a lot of money for this. I mean, that's how the teams get so much money every season for Sky, because they're paying for it. I mean, somebody like Ian Ross mentioned the Scottish Championship games on a Friday night. I've watched some of them, and I've been a couple of them, and the Carlisle game was a really good game, to be fair. The one at Kilmarnock scored 3 goals in the first half. That was a really good game of football. But there's football. Listen, there's football in Scotland's not as bad as people make out. I don't care what anybody says. I might not have money, we might not have hundreds of top players, but it's not as bad as a lot of people make out, because even if you watch your youth games, everybody goes on about the academy games. The games are good, and the football up here is decent, to be fair. I know it's not going to be up to the scratch with English games, but the football up here is decent. It's not as bad as a lot of people make out, Martin, and that's how I feel we should be selling our product better. We should be promoting our game better, because there's a lot of good players in Scottish football, and there's a lot of teams that want to promote their stuff.
Well, Andrew makes a point, William, right? And that was a point I was actually going to bring up. Should have let BT have it, even if it's less money. It's worth having the better product on TV. Excuse me. Then we need to be growing the audience. So if it was like £1 million less a year for BT, but BT were going to show like a top or bottom 6 battle over the weekend to promote the game, surely that's better than Sky putting the wrong information on their promotions. I'm pretty sure that Alfredo Morelos is still on Glenn Kamara's body when they do the lineups. Yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure Fashion Sakala's body is used for quite a few of the players as well, which astounds me. So would it not have been better having BT with a little bit less money that might actually promote the game better?
I think the problem is, and it'll always be the same in Scottish football, is that money's always going to talk. You saw all those years ago with Setanta when they thought the Setanta deal was better than the Sky deal. And I think the Sky deal then was more than what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But they took the Setanta deal, and then obviously, we all know what happened there. And I think that's the problem. Maybe rather than looking at the longer term deal with BT might have made more sense. But at the time, the fact they were getting whatever it is, maybe like an extra $1 million or an extra $2 million between the 12 clubs, that was more important to take that money than to think about 5 or 10 years down the line. And that's kind of where we are. But I would just like to know, why can't we sell some of the other games to other broadcasters? Surely, even if it's 40 games, surely there's still enough out there to bring in, say, an extra couple of £1 million over the season from other contracts. Whether that's somebody in Australia, whether it's maybe somebody in America, it's in Asia. Surely there's something else there that could be done to help the product. And I think for me, that's the biggest issue. And when you see the actual sponsor of the league, Singe, the fact that Doncaster had to get somebody to go and get that contract rather than him, sums up where Scottish football is. But we could kind of rant all day about it. I suppose we need to talk about the games at some point. But it's frustrating because you feel like more could be done to help the game from grassroots up to the top level.
Do you think, and final thing on this, right, and then we'll move on because we've got quite a few games to go through. Kerr, do you think getting rid of that 3 p.m. lockdown thing on a Saturday would help? Is that still necessary now?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter when games are played. The fans are always going to go, but because people work now, don't work just Monday to Fridays, they work all different times. So if the games are on TV as a way to watch games, we would all do it. But I don't know. We need to get someone to help Scottish football, just as a product in general, because you see how well the national team's doing. I'm a big fan of the national side, as Martin, just because of different issues. But you see how well they're doing, and if they're doing well and we can promote the game, then sure it's going to help clubs.
Yeah.
Get the grassroots up, get the youth academies running better, and then get maybe better players into Scottish football, and then people can turn around and say, well, Instead of me sitting here saying I think it's decent, other people could turn around and say, well, it is decent, because I still don't think it's as bad as people think, but we need to actually, no show, but we need to actually tell folk it is, because sometimes people only listen to the people in charge, but at the end of the day, if they're getting money and they think that's the only money they can get, they're going to take it.
I just wish Scottish football didn't hate itself, and then something might change. Just finally, Willie, let's leave this on a positive note, even though the question I'm going to ask you is probably not going to be a positive answer. Do you see this changing at all in the near future?
Only if we get the right people in to help, like, sort of grow the product. And it needs to be people that aren't just like sort of out for themselves. To me, Doncaster is only interested in his pay packet at the end of every year. Do you know what I mean? Like, nothing else matters to him. We need people who have got the guts to get into a meeting and ask for more money, to ask for the product to be improved, to ask for, maybe the clubs to do a little bit more in terms of, like, sort of selling the product. And at the end of the day, when you've got, like, the two top clubs in the country who can't even agree on a, like, sort of Old Firm derby or a Glasgow derby, I think that kind of sums up where we are in terms of the game up here. So, I mean, if you can't sell the product, how are you ever going to, like, get more money from it? And this is where it all kind of falls flat. And instead of, like, clubs all coming together for the betterment of the actual league, which would help everybody, it would improve the quality of the league. It would bring more money into the league, which means you could maybe get a slightly higher quality of player, which would improve the product on the pitch. So all of these things all need to happen, but I've probably been saying that now for like 20 years. So, you know what I mean? It's never going to change, is it really?
There's not even a board in charge of Scotland that can decisively bring in VAR. So there you go. Yeah. And we're not going down the VAR route because we will be here to fucking 10 o'clock at night trying to talk about that.
You're off all week.
I'm off all week, I know, but if I don't get onto the football soon, Willie Irwin's going to reach through the computer and grab it to the throat. So let's go on to the first game of the weekend, Hearts v Hibs. Again, if this was on TV, I thought it was a cracking game of football. I thought Hibs started well, because I did actually watch this game all the way through, believe it or not. I thought Hibs started well. Hearts struggled to cope with them. Hearts got back into the game, and then the second half, Hearts pretty much controlled the game.
Yeah, I seen the highlights. I didn't see the game in full. I seen the highlights, and kind of agree what you said. Hibs get the goal at the start. I think it's through to the right. They get a goal, and you thought, well, it's a decent start. But Hearts never panicked. They grew into the game. They know they get better players. They've got a bit of dig in the middle of the park, and they can score 3 goals, 2 for Andy Hardy, and they deserve to win it. And to be honest with you, it's been a great season for Hearts. If you're a Hearts fan, you should be really proud of your team this season, because finishing third very easily, and that's same in Europe. And you don't know if they're going to end up getting to a Scottish Cup final as well. They've had a really good season, and probably not spent a lot of money, but I've said that a few times in this pod. Barry McKay again. The boy's excellent. See when he's just in full flow and he's full of confidence, and you can see he's playing football. He's happy with he's playing. He's quality, really. And I was still taking back to Rangers, but I know it will never happen. But it was quality.
I don't know, Kerr. I don't know if that's, and it's not a bad thing, but I don't know if that's just his level where he's suited to be playing his football.
Could be, Martin.
Thanks for the expert analysis back on that there, Kerr. Brilliant. I was surprised at the start for Hibs, because Hibs have been poor for a long, long time. I haven't seen any improvement really under Maloney for the very few games that I have seen them, but every time I've seen them, they've been poor. But they started really well, and then what's the best way to describe it? They Hibsed it.
Yeah, well, I actually thought Hibs started the game really well. I thought they were moving the ball well.
They looked up.
I really like the young. Yeah, I really like the young lad up front, Melkerson. I think that's how you say his name. I thought he was constant. He moves well. He's got a decent touch, a wee bit of pace. He's actually a decent finisher. And they were causing Hearts a lot of problems early doors. So when they took the lead, I don't know what you would say. Hearts just didn't come out in the first 15, 20 minutes. And then after that, obviously, I think there was like a 25-minute period where Hibs had a lot of control, but they never looked like sort of adding to their tally. And then obviously just on half-time, I mean, when I look at that, the boy Sims shouldn't get into the box and he shouldn't be able to bully the defender the way he does. But then that kind of sums up Hibs defensively. I thought the guy, Rocky Bashiri, he was all over the place.
Aye, he looked poor, and he was getting bigged up before the game.
Yeah, and I think it's strange. This guy was obviously somebody that Maloney knows through his time in Belgium, and he's obviously seen this guy and thought he's going to be a mainstay in my Hibs team second half of the season. I think they were saying during the commentary that they've got an option to buy. Well, if he keeps playing like that, you're definitely not taking up that option to buy because he's a horror show. Fair play to Andy Halliday, he took his chance lovely just on half time. But then you think at half time, all right, it's 1-1. Hibs are going to have to come back out and pick up the tempo, get going again. But they just didn't. It was so flat. Obviously, Hearts take the lead. It was a lovely ball in for Harron, actually, for outside the box. And there's Kingsley, sort of coming in at the back post, but the defender doesn't really react to it again.
There's nothing there.
And it's 2-1. And then, obviously, the third goal's a moment of brilliance in it. Barry Mackay drives at the defence. Lovely wee kind of back heel to Andy Halliday, and whatever that was, 20-25 yards out. Great finish. But then, I don't know what that was, 43-44 minutes, it's 1-0 to Hibs. After whatever that was, 58-59 minutes, it's 3-1 to Hearts. How can you fall apart that quickly in a 15-minute period in a game where you need to win it to get into the top six? And even at 3-1, it didn't look like Hibs were coming back into the game. In fact, if Hearts actually had probably pushed on a bit more, they'd have probably won by a couple more goals. But I mean, that probably sums up the difference in the two teams. When you look at Hearts, they've made good additions over the summer.
Yeah.
I think the boy Sims, as we spoke about earlier, I think he's a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a really classy player. I think he's for Everton, isn't he? And he was their under-23 top goal scorer. So yet again, that's another great bit of business by Hearts getting this guy in on loan. They've now got Barry Mackay on a new long-term extended deal, which is a no-brainer given how good Barry is.
100%.
And so even when you look at that Hearts team, the starting 11, you've got Gordon, Stephen Kingsley, Craig Halkett, Toby Sibic, Peter Harron, Nathaniel Atkinson, Andy Halliday, Alex Cochrane, Liam Boyce, Barry Mackay, and Ellis Sims. That's a pretty strong starting 11.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when you look at the bench, they've got Ben Woodburn on the bench. This is a guy that was...
Can he get a game?
I mean, this guy 4 or 5 years ago, they were touting this guy has been the next big thing. Mm-hmm. And I know it's not really worked for the kid, but to have him on the bench with sort of Gary Mackay, Stephen, I mean, that shows you the depth that Hearts have got, and that's without Suter, who's injured. Do you know what I mean? That's how much depth that Hearts team have got. When you look at Hibs, the bench doesn't really have anything outstanding on it, in my opinion. I do like the boy Jasper that's on loan for Fulham, but a lot of the rest...
Again, that's a loan, William. That's only for so long.
See, but that's the problem that Hibs got, obviously, when they decided to take the money for Boyle. They were never going to be able to find a replacement in the January window for him, so they went down the loan route and they tried to bring in some guys on loan who would make an impact. They obviously signed sort of Melkerson and Hoga for Norwegian football, who were basically supposed to be part of their development team. But then when Nisbet gets his injury, they have to play the kid. And it's shocking when you look at Hibs, there's no way they should be in the bottom six. But it just shows you how inconsistent Hibs are. And maybe there's some opinions now that was Jack Ross really that bad and is Sean Maloney really that much better?
Well, I honestly, when Sean Maloney was touted and to become the next Hibs manager, I thought to myself, really? He's been, what was it? Was he the actual assistant in Belgium?
He was one of them. I don't know if
was he just a coach?
But he started at Wigan, didn't he? He was at Wigan as well. That's where he earned his coaching badges and stuff. And
but for you, Kerr, has he done anything really since he's come in? Has he tried to change his style of play? And it's just
he has. He tried to change it, and they try to play a lot. You keep the ball in the date, and they try to move it well, and they actually do it to a point. But when the game changes and it gets a bit more physical, I think that's where they kind of fall short. They've not got any physicality at all in the middle of that part. You've got Joe Newell and Jake Doyle-Hayes. Jake Doyle-Hayes was at Murn last season. He was okay there, but it wasn't great. And then Harry Clark was a good signing, but he's only come into the side, but he's another one that's on loan for Arsenal. You've got Chris Cadden, who's been about the leagues. I still don't like Josh Doyle being put in a left side of a back three. I don't think that's his best position. I just think he's trying to play too much football with him. But like we said with Hearts, they can play football, but they can also play the dirty side of the game when they can just
they can mix
push
it
it
up.
long, or they can put their foot in. And I think I've seen Hibs a couple of times and they look good, but if they concede a goal, or the game gets quite rocky, they kind of start to go back into their shell, because they've not got anybody that can, apart from the boy Porteous, and he's just a bomb scare, they've not really got anybody that can put their foot in the middle of the park or up front, to be fair. And I think you seen it when they played against Arbroath, didn't you? They scored goals, but they were also very shaky at the back, and I think that's the way he's going to be. I think they'll stick them to see what he does in the summer, but
I know,
it's
but
still
Kerr,
like,
that game's going on, and obviously, see when any team, especially if it's a derby, score right on half time, it does knock your confidence
it
right.
does,
But a strong team can then come back. There was no part of me that fought at half time, and in fact, I actually spent most of half time on the phone to Willie. But there was no part of me at half time that thought, all right, okay, Hibs will regroup and get back into this, because they're just not strong mentally.
no, they're not. That's what I mean. No, they've no. They're very weak mentally. They remind me a bit like Rangers. No, there's not. They don't dig deep, Martin. They seem to, like I say, when their heads go down very quickly, and they can't pull away from that. Whereas Hearts, on the other side, I don't know if that comes for the manager. I just come for a squad of players he's brought in. They all work for each other. They work as a unit, and they might not be the greatest side. Hearts. I've seen a couple of comments say people don't think they're that great, but they all know what to do. They've all got position. They know what to do. They know what the manager sets them out to do. That's you don't move for that area of the park. That's your bit. And Mackay seems to get a free role, and the big boy Sims just plays up front.
Yeah.
You've got Boys who's just, he doesn't score as many goals as he used to, but he's in taking the goal. I can't spit out there. He's very good. He's involved in everything they do up the field. He links up the play well. He comes back. His movement. And I just think Hearts had a good side for money they've spent, especially coming up in their first season. They've done tremendously, I have to say. But Hibs will be looking to kick on. They'll be looking for a different display in the semi-final. But if they don't get it, then they could be under pressure. I don't think he will be, but he could, because I don't know if the Hibs fans will constantly want to keep getting beat with Hearts.
Well, on that point, William, CGM saying, at the end of the day, Hearts are the third best team in Scotland. Now, obviously, that's true, because they're miles ahead in third. They're going to finish third. How big an achievement is that? Because, we need to remember, they've just been promoted.
Yeah, I think it's slightly different with Hearts to a point, because a lot of these guys were with them in the Championship as well. So Hearts were able to fund these kind of signings at that level. I mean, Craig Gordon's an outstanding goalkeeper. You know what I mean? If he was still at Celtic, a lot of people would still be saying he's probably one of the best goalkeepers in the league. So the fact that he moved to the Championship with Hearts, you know what I mean? That shows you the level that, and the respect that he's got for Hearts as well. And to be like Halkett's one of the better defenders in the league. That's why he's recently been called up to the Scotland squad. And then, even just going through some of the names that Kerr's talking about earlier on, Boyce cost Hearts a lot of money. And at one point, I think there was reports saying he was on $4 or $5 a week. If that's the case, there's not many other teams that are going to pay that in Scotland, out with maybe what we say, maybe Hibs and maybe Aberdeen would maybe go that far as well. So that's the kind of level that they can get to if they want to bring in a player of that standard. And the fact that they were able to entice Barry Mackay back to Scotland to play for Hearts as well, because I'm sure Barry would have had other offers there. Because a lot of people still see the ability Barry's got. And, you look at guys like Gary Mackay-Steven. I mean, Gary's still a good player. Yeah, he's a little bit older, but still a good technical player. And then, I think Kerr hit the nail on the head earlier when he talked about the physicality. See, when you look at that Hearts team, there's a lot of big physical bodies in there. And see, when they go and get tough, they've got the guys who can kind of strap in the battle armour on and just get out there and fight for it. Hibs don't have that. Hibs don't have guys like that in their team, in my opinion. They don't have that kind of character. And that's something that Maloney's going to have to add if he wants to improve that team next year. Because it's all right having players that are technically good, but seeing the Scottish League, you still need that physicality and that kind of battle-hardened mentality to get through some games over the season.
No, 100%. We'll come to Maloney in a wee second, Kerr. I know you've already kind of touched on him. Just come back to Hearts and the job that Robbie Nielsen's done. Is that manager of the year potential what Robbie's went in there and done? Is it a massive achievement? Because if we could look at it, okay, maybe Hearts did have the funds that maybe a lot of other teams didn't. But when we first came back up for the Championship, we had a lot more funds and we still finished third.
No, that's a massive achievement. Manager here, I'm not sure. I think there's maybe one or two in front of him, like Alexander and Mackay, because no talking Ross County later on, but they started the season. I think they didn't get any points in their first 10 games or something.
I
Could
think they
be
got
wrong,
one
but
draw in their first 10. They
aye.
didn't win any of their first 10.
So I think you can look at them as a thing, maybe, but he's done really well, Robbie. And I know at one point I read in one of the newspapers, I think it was only maybe about 4 or 6 weeks ago, he felt he was under a bit of pressure. I don't know why, because what else can he do there? He's not going to finish first or second, is he?
No.
So finishing third is all he can really do, apart from maybe get to a cup final, which he's got a chance at the weekend. So there's nothing a lot else he can. I know Callum Davis won 2 cups last season, but I think that was
a freak, though. That was a one-off.
once in a lifetime, aye. So I think Robbie's doing really well, but he done really well before and he went down to England, didn't he, with MK Dons, and never really had a great time there, and he's come
I
back
think
up the road and done really
he'll
well.
massively regret leaving Hearts the first time and trying his hand down south.
I think managers, Martin, always like to challenge himself if they think they've done enough at the club they're at, they maybe go and challenge themselves somewhere else. Maybe the wrong club he went to. You don't know, but I think if he got offered that again, maybe next season, the season after, they might take it as well, because you've only got a shelf life at a club, no matter how well you do. You're going to go under pressure at some point, like probably Callum Davison's been this season. So sometimes when your stock's high and you get offered managers' jobs, sometimes it's hard to knock them back.
Do we need to cover the St Johnstone game this week? I think we could probably just bypass that one, couldn't we? William, quick question for Darren Stewart. That's an interesting point. What would a typical top 6 player in Scotland earn per week outside the Old Firm? And is our cap 40,000 or so? I'm pretty sure Rangers' cap was 35, but I could be wrong. But I think it was round about the 35 mark. But for a kind of typical player for likes of a Hearts, Dundee United, Aberdeen, what do you think the weekly wage is there?
You're probably talking a couple of grand a week.
I think it would differ on the players, but I think that's average.
If you're talking about Hibs, Hearts and Aberdeen, you've got to entice a certain standard of player. So their budget's slightly higher than maybe, say, don't know, like a St Mirren or like Motherwell's slightly different, and they're a fan-owned club, so it's hard to know where their budget is. But like, the kind of rumour over the years is that Ross County pay a decent wage, and that when they dropped into the Championship, they were offering guys more money than what some Premiership teams were offering.
Is that simply though, William, because of where they're situated?
Yeah, of course it's hard to entice people to move up to that part of the country because you're so far away, aren't you? And that's one of the issues. I would imagine Hibs, Hearts and Aberdeen are probably playing a minimum a couple of £1,000 a week. Some of the guys who are maybe the star attractions in these teams could well be on £3,000, £4,000, £5,000, £6,000 a week. I mean, obviously we don't know this for certain, but I don't imagine some of these guys that are playing for these teams are going to be up here for less than maybe a couple £100,000 a year. And obviously the tax man takes a chunk of that. So even if you're getting paid 100 grand a year and you're losing a chunk of that, it's still not the worst wage in the world. But, clearly the way football is now, it's hard to be critical of players if they want to go somewhere else and earn more money. But I think when you look at those clubs, I would imagine even the most average player in that first team squad is probably on £1,500, £2,000 a week.
I think CGM's got it spot on. £2.85 a week plus a curly whirly or a sherbet dab dab. There you go.
I've seen a curly whirly for years.
I've not had a curly whirly.
I've got one in my fridge, Willie. Do you want me to put it through a computer for you?
Love it.
That's right enough to
live close to each other. Actually, we can't obviously leave the game and touch on Maloney without touching on, I would say, man in a match, Andy Halliday. He's had his injury problems. He actually went off with an injury before he got a chance to get his hat-trick. But again, he was doing pirouettes in the middle of the park and everything. It's been a fantastic move for Andy. It's probably been a good to decent season all in if you add in the injuries. But to cap it off with that performance in Edinburgh Derby, I thought he was fantastic.
He was, and Andy's a type of player. We all know when he was at Rangers. Sometimes he wasn't the best technically. He wasn't the greatest football player we had at the club, but he'd run through a brick wall for you. And he does the same with Hearts. As soon as he puts his gears running on the pitch, he gives you 110% no matter what position he's playing. And sometimes that's what fans like to see. You can have all the ability in the world, but if you don't have any attitude, or your attitude stinks, your mentality stinks, you're pointless. But Andy's got everything else. But yeah, he was super from it. He scored 2 goals. I mean, he's been in and out the Hearts team into this season. He's not been like a regular pick, but he's stuck in there. He's got a new deal, and I think I should stop doing podcasts myself. But no, he done really well. And I liked his wee slide at the end when he pointed to kind of Alfredo Morelos, but no, it was good to see him scoring 2 goals because he's always had that. And I remember when he played at Livingston, he used to score quite a few goals. He was playing further up the park, but Andy is a decent player. He always has been, and it's good to see he's still playing and still enjoying himself.
He should maybe just do podcasts with other like-minded gentlemen. Quick question, William. Should we have kept him? For me, no, I don't think he was good enough for Rangers, and I'm just being brutally honest, I don't think he was. But I think at Hearts, again, like Barry Mackay, I think that is his level. And it's been shown because he's not always picked by Robbie Nielsen, but he's trusted.
No, I think Andy at that point, it was a great decision for Andy to go to Hearts. He moved to a Hearts team that were the favourites to get promotion for the Championship. They did that job, which is what they had to do. And Hearts are going to comfortably finish the third this year. I think it was the best decision he could have made. I don't think there was ever any chance of him signing for Aberdeen or Hibs for obvious reasons. So the next best club after leaving Rangers, if he wanted to stay in Scotland, was Hearts. And, it sounds like he might be on the end of another new deal. So it would be interesting, to see how they utilise Andy going forward. Because I would imagine if Hearts were to play in Europe, are they maybe going to go out and buy a slightly better standard of player? Are they going to, put a little bit more money into the wage budget? So it'd be interesting to see how they utilise Andy, if it is in midfield or if he has to move back to being, like a fullback again, which he can utilise them at Rangers as well in that position.
Aye. Quickly, Kerr, on Sean Maloney, you've already mentioned him. You think he'll be there next season. Why do you think he'll be there next season? And does he deserve to be there next season?
Does he deserve? Only performances so far, probably not, but I've not watched every single Hibs game since he's come in here. I think he'll be there next season. I think they actually probably paying him more money than they've paid maybe Jack Ross, to be fair, because I think they maybe pushed a boat out to get him and the coaching staff that came in with him, and plus some of these players, and they're probably saying, right, we'll give him next season. Will he get the full season? I don't know. Like I say, they play some decent stuff when the game is 0-0 and they get in the lead, but they seem to crumble. I think that's what he's going to have to try and change. I think it was a forward, progressive move to get a young coach in with some different ideas. Will it work? I don't know. But I have to applaud them for trying it, and I think I think he'll get the first half of next season, Martin. But if it's still going pear-shaped, then I think they may have to move to bring in somebody else.
Your thoughts on Maloney, Wally?
I think it's hard to kind of say because also when a manager comes in mid-season, a bit like Gio, you probably don't really get the proper time to work with the players and do a lot of the tactical stuff you would like. So I agree with Kerr. I think you'll get the first part of next season, and if things aren't improving, then you know what will happen in football nowadays. It's you're just a number. They'll just let you go and they'll bring in somebody else.
Well, sorry, Martin. Do you think if Hearts destroy them in the cup semi-final, do you think you could win under pressure if they get beat like 3 or 4-0?
Aye, I think he will be, Wally.
Because that's not just getting beat, that's getting embarrassed in a semi-final. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know, William. How different is that? Because like for talking's sake, if we get spanked in the semis, right, you can imagine the pressure that's going to be hit on top of Gio, William. But if Hearts spank Hibs in the semis, is there that same kind of pressure on Maloney?
Absolutely. I mean, look, the reality is, Hearts fans don't want to lose to Hibs. Hibs fans don't want to lose to Hearts, and vice versa, Rangers and Celtic. So anytime you lose one of these games, and especially when it's consistently, Hibs' record against Hearts in the last 5 years hasn't been great, to be fair. So that would be a concern. And I think the fact is, when you see how well Hibs started the game at the weekend to all of a sudden being 3-1 down within that 15-20 minute period, that would be a concern if you're a Hibs player and a Hibs supporter, because you would worry about the character in that team. And if Hearts were to get the first goal at the weekend, the roof could come caving in pretty quickly, to be honest. But, that's football. I mean, this is why becoming a football manager is not the best kind of job in the world, is it? Because it can, it can happen quite quickly. You can be out the door after 6 weeks, 6 months, maybe a year. It's just how it is now.
The only thing is you're guaranteed your contract, I suppose. Right, listen, that's 40 minutes and we've only covered one game, right? So we better move on. Just very quickly, the attendance for that one was 19,041. I think that's pretty much a full-time cast on it. I don't think it holds much more than that. Moving on to the Dundee Derby, William. 2 each. Dundee were 2-0 up. Dundee United, were 2-0 up. pegged back to 2 each by Dundee. That's a bit of a surprise, isn't it? Because Dundee are honking.
Yeah, look, when I saw it was 2-0, I thought that was game over. If I'm honest, I didn't think Dundee had the character, I suppose you would say, to come back. And obviously, watching the highlights of the game, I'm not really too sure what the Dundee goalkeeper's doing for the first goal. He kind of comes flying out, and he's a bit of a horror show. And Nicky Clark is the easiest header in the world, probably, to score. The second goal, it's a great free kick, isn't it, for Charlie Mulgrew? I know there's not a lot of love for Charlie Mulgrew on the Rangers podcast, given he's an ex-Celtic and Aberdeen player, but that was a hell of a free kick.
And he meant it.
I think he meant it. So, you know, at 2-0, you probably don't really see Dundee coming back. But then again, it was a lovely wee chip. But I just think Seagrass can do a bit better. Maybe that's just me. I thought Seagrass was maybe just a little bit, I don't know, it didn't seem as though he was set in his position. And then, like, Mullins got an easy finish. But then, you know, we spoke about this man, I think it was last week or the week before, Charlie Adam. I mean,
has the goalkeeper got to do better there, William?
I don't know if the ball moves or it takes a deflection.
Took a deflection off a guy.
Did it take a deflection?
It went that way, aye.
Yeah, like when you look at it from a couple of different angles, the first view doesn't look like it touches him, but then it goes so straight that you think it must have took a deflection for the goalkeeper not to move.
It didn't look to me like it took a deflection, to be honest with you.
It was when you saw it on another...
Watch it in your Sky Sports app one.
If you see it on another replay, you see the wee nick off the defender.
Right, okay, fair enough.
But I think the thing you would question at the time is, see when you're 2-0 up, you can't afford to let the opposition back into the game. And we think whatever that was, 5 minutes, I think it was 2-1. And then obviously Dundee kind of got a wee bit of a burst off that, and then go and equalise. And it's some strike for Charlie. You know, you got to give him a lot of props. It's a good strike. But then after that, like Dundee then get deep again, which is crazy. Do you know what I mean? And to be honest with you, I think it was Mark McNulty had a great chance to score and he missed it. So, like, Dundee United should have won the game. But then I think when you look at Dundee United, they've got some good experience in their team. Guys like Nicky Clark, Tony Watt, Kevin McDonald, Ryan Edwards, Charlie Mulgrew. They're good experienced guys. And then they've got the sort of slightly younger guys like Ross Graham, Dylan Levitt, who's obviously in loan. And then like some of their younger guys on the bench like Archie Meekinson, Louis Nielsen, Kieran Freeman, Chris Mockery.
They've got a cracking guy in their under 18s.
No, don't you start. Here we go.
They've got an absolute
cracking player in their under 18s.
And I think the thing is that Dundee United have always given young players a chance. And I think, you know, the job that Tam Coates has done this season, he would be up there for me as manager of the year. I think he's done a really good job.
For Dundee United, Walgett would be sitting in fourth. I mean, I know like it was poor. In fact, you mentioned it, and look, Dundee and Charlie Mulgrew scored in the 55th minute, and then Mullen in the 59th to make it 2-1, and then Charlie Adam in 61. So they've conceded 2 goals from them scoring in the space of 6 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a disappointment, as I said earlier. When you get that 2-0 lead, the one thing you're looking to do for the next 10 or 15 minutes is just like sort of secure that lead. Dundee United don't do that, and before they know it, it's 2-2. But what they showed was a bit of character, because even after 2-2, they get back on the front foot, and they did, and they should have won the game realistically. And I think the worry, if you look at that Dundee squad, is it's just not the strongest. I mean, it feels like they just didn't add enough quality over the summer. Whether that was due to budget reasons or whatever, I don't know. But
they added a poor manager as well, though.
Yeah, look, I still can't believe that they get rid of the previous manager, McPake, and brought a man who has basically kind of nosedived the last 3 or 4 clubs that he's managed. I find that incredible. If that's an old Friends Act he's tracking, then he should be chased out the door. Because see, if you're the owner of Dundee and you've put all your hopes on Mark McGee, that would be a huge worry as soon as somebody mentioned his name. There's a lot of good young managers in Scotland in the lower leagues who could have come in and done a better job than him. And I just find it incredible that you would go to a guy like that. I mean, it's just beyond belief. Because surely there's other guys out there who could have come in and made a more immediate impact or been allowed a better time to build the team. I mean, these two have only got a contract until the summer, so what they're going to do is bag the two of them in the summer, then they're back in the Championship, and somebody's got to come back in and rebuild that team like McPake had to do.
Genuinely, Willie, do you know who I would have seen in there before McGee? Dick Campbell. I would have gave Dick Campbell the job before I would have gave Mark McGee the job.
I know, but that's one of the problems in Scottish football. Like, sort of Dick Campbell's face probably doesn't fit at a top team in Scotland. And I think because of the kind of job that I think he runs his own business with his brother, doesn't he? So maybe he's quite content there. But surely there's guys in League One and League Two, young managers, like aspiring managers who want to improve and to show themselves at a better level. Why would you not give one of those guys a chance rather than go to Mark McGee? I mean, I'm sorry. I just think there's better managers out there who could have come in and made a better impact and could have possibly saved Dundee if they get relegated. But I think now it's just too far gone.
100% too far gone. CGM saying I would have given it to Dick Van Dijk. I'd agreed it to Dick Van Dijk over Mark McGee. But Scott, look, Dundee United conceding the two quick goals and drawing again. Is that kind of been? And I say this, but at the same time as saying they're in fourth, but the league is so tight. Has that kind of been the story of United's season?
To be honest with you, I think they've had a lot of draws, but I feel like if you ask Tom Courts, he'll be happy. I mean, they've had 11 draws, which probably more than he would have wanted, but it's also another 11 games never get beat as well. You probably look at it that way. And for his first season, I mean, I said they would go down, didn't I? Or would win the relegation. So what do I know? But I just thought he would struggle because he was in the door, but he's done really well. And I like to look at the boy Ross Graham at a bat. I know he's been a few people have linked him to us. I don't know if that's true or not, but I like to look at him at a bat. I think he's still a bit raw, but he looks a big, decent defender. He's good in there, as we know. But I think he's done well, and I think the budget he's got, that's how he's having to use the young players, because United have never had a lot of money to spend. I know the Thompson wasted a lot of money, didn't he? The two Thompsons that used to do in the club, and they wasted a lot of money, so I think that's why they bring in the young lads, which is great, because it gives a lot of young players opportunity to play first team football. And they've done really well, and the players he's brought in, the experience, have done really well for him as well. Something like Charlie McGrew is a great player at the back, he's got loads of experience, he'll nurture young players beside him, and he also get you goals. So, no, I think I agree with Willie. I know somebody's mentioned you have to, if you don't win something, you're no manager a year, but I think it's a whole situation you have to look at a club. Yeah. It's easy to, when you're spending money and you've got the best players, to win things, and then you become manager a year that way. But if you're at an unfashionable club who's not got a lot of money, you're kind of dicing things to bring players in for either loans or lower leagues or free players who's not got clubs, and you can get a team together. Somebody like, David Martindale's done it, Malky Mackay's done it, Tom Courts has done it. So I think you look at these guys, because it's hard to do a job with any money, and it is with money. Might be more pressure right enough when you've got money as well, but I think it's a lot of hard work these guys do, and I think he's up there. I'm not saying he was going to get it, but I think he's up there with a shout, and I think United have done tremendous this season so far.
You're not going to ask me, Kerr, when I said there was a fantastic player in their B team. You're not going to ask me who it is?
My Alzheimer's has kicked in, Martin.
Let's move on to the next game.
I don't want to put too much pressure on him, so I'll not mention his name, but let's just say I'm related.
Maybe we'll go about him next season, the season later, but that way.
Just very, very, very quickly before we move on to the next game, because I'm going to do the St Johnstone game next and get that out of the road. Tom Courts, you mentioned him there really, really quickly. What have you made of him? And what have you made of the job that he has actually done at Dundee United? Has he over exceeded expectations, do you think?
He has, because when they first came in, I never really knew a lot about him. And I said to you, I don't know if he'll be able to handle it this season, because there's a lot of coming straight up and there's a lot of pressure on him, but he's done it fantastically well. And even when you're watching him get interviewed, he looks really calm, and he says what it is, which I like. So, no, I think he's done really well.
Doesn't he? He does speak well.
He does, and I think he's done really well there. I have to say, I just hope, well, I don't hope, but I just think maybe next season will be harder for him, because it's second season syndrome. It might find it a wee bit harder, but this season, United fans are probably thinking, because they finish in top six, I don't know if they were maybe hoping for that, because there's a lot of clubs out of top six that maybe should have fancied to be in there, and they're in there, sitting fourth at the moment, so he's done a great job.
Very, very, very quickly, William. Tony Watt came in Dundee United from Motherwell in January. Obviously, at the time, he was a top scorer in the league. Not really pulled up any trees at United, has he?
No, he probably hasn't, to be fair. But I still think he's a good addition. And I think one of the big things they'll have in the summer is they might move one or two out, which maybe allow him a bit more of the main striking option. They've obviously got McNulty up there, Nicky Clark, and Tony, but I think you might find that one of those two might go over the summer. It would make a bit of sense, probably. I think McNulty is one of those guys. He's probably never really lived up to the expectations. He was one of those guys that down in England, a lot of people thought he was going to be a decent striker, and then things kind of went a bit wrong at Reading, which I think he's kind of been quite public about, to be fair, with some of the things he said. But yeah, I like Tony Watt. I still think he's a decent striker at this level, and it might just be that it'll be next season before you see the true impact of his move.
Yeah, I was going to do the St Johnstone game next, but I have been reliably informed by my boss that it's Livingston Motherwell next. So let's go on to Livingston Motherwell. Heartbreak for Martindale.
Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for the guy because I genuinely think he's done a great job this season. And I think getting to the top six would have probably seen him been right up there as manager of the year. He's had to rebuild.
Has he done a great job, William, or had he just done a really poor job at the start of the season?
I think when you have to rebuild a team as much as what he had, I think you've got to give the guy the benefit of the doubt to start off with, just purely because of the amount of changes that happened. I mean, that was a ludicrous amount of changes that they had over the summer. But yeah, again, that's the problem when you only offer like 1 and 2 year deals to players, or when so many of your players are in loan, etc. That's one of the problems. You know, it's just a constant rebuild, isn't it? You always need to like go out there and bring somebody in. I mean, they're probably going to have the same problem this coming year as well. You know, there's quite a few guys that are out of contract. They've got a few guys in loan. And like the boy, Auden Bailey, you know, like he's been one of their best players this year. He's probably going to go back to his parent club in the summer. And then like Alan Forrest, it looks like he's going to sign for Hearts potentially on a pre-contract. That's probably too.
I don't get that.
When you look at Alan Forrest's stats, and a lot of managers are stats driven now, when you look at, you know, like the runs that he makes into the box, the chances that he creates into the red zone, which is getting into the 18-yard box. He does that better than probably anybody else out with the top 2-3 teams. So, I mean, that game at the weekend, I thought it was him and Bailey that were outstanding for Lovey early on, and they two were the reason that Lovey were ahead. It was a good ball through from Forrest that sets up Bailey, and then he rolls it past the goalkeeper. Second time, it's Forrest with a shot from outside the box. It puts them 2-0 up. They were
it's a good finish with Forrest. Well, I've seen him a few times, and I don't listen. Who am I? I'm just a guy that talks in a podcast. I know that you go to a lot of games, Willie. I know, Kerr, you've got all the scouting stuff going on, so you might have different opinions from me. But I don't see the big thing with Alan Forrest. I think he's a poor James Forrest, if I'm being honest.
But he's like his brother.
I don't think James Forrest is that good a player.
No, but like his brother plays for Celtic, and only a few years ago, Alan Forrest was at Ayr United. Whereas Alan's made the step up to Lovey, and he has been one of their best players. And so at the end of the day, like, what Hearts have done well over the years is kind of pick players from other teams and bring them in. And like Hibs have did that as well, which is like you pick some of the best guys who are maybe at Livingston, St Mirren, etc. You try and get round about and pick these guys. And I do think Alan Forrest would be a nice pickup for Hearts. But just getting back to the game quickly, it was a great strike for Slattery. What a strike. I think that was about 25, 30 yards.
That was a fantastic goal.
You know, that ball into the box for the corner in the last minute. I mean, it was like ping ball, wasn't it? And then, like, obviously, the guy Lammy just manages to get his head on it and they score. And, you know, that's what football's all about for me. I mean, I know, like, sort of Rangers fans get criticised all those years ago when we won the game at Partick Thistle that took us into Europe. That was just like raw emotion that day. I know people say, well, it was only Partick Thistle, but it was the fact that we get back into Europe after where we'd been. And for Motherwell, like, to get into the top six, I think that's a good achievement this year. I think after losing Alan Campbell and then having to sell their top goal scorer in January to Dundee United, I think they've done well to get to the top six. And obviously with them being a fan-owned club, and also they will continue to sell their best players because like that's how it works. I think Motherwell's done really well this year to finish in the top six, and I have to say I've been impressed at times with some of their football, but then again they were a minute 90 seconds away from finishing outside the top six.
Yeah.
But you know, see at the end of the day, see when you look back at the record books, nobody will care because they finished in the top six and Lovey didn't.
No. No, that's very, very true. Keir, do you know one thing I did notice watching the highlights back? They took a fair support away with him.
Motherwell.
Mm-hmm.
They've not a bad support, Mark. I mean, I think there's a lot of folk tuned into what Graham Alexander's doing there, and I think they enjoy the way he plays football. Because I've said to you before, watching Motherwell before, they were always dead negative, weren't they? But under him, they don't seem to be as bad. And I just like what he does. I think he's come in and done a really good job, Graham Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes some difficult.
You know how much I love to endorse Motherwell, so yeah.
You do. I don't know why you've got the hate, man. Don't hold hate. It's not good for you. No, I think he's done a good job here, and I'm not saying I'm not the biggest fan either because it's Motherwell and we've had problems with him in the past, but he's done a great job here, hasn't he, to feel what he's been into, because the boy Robinson get a sack. I don't know who was in before. Was Alexander replaced Stephen Robinson? I can't remember that far back. He
Was
did,
it Alexander? Was it?
So he's come in and done really well, considering like, we get the Alan Campbell, who's probably one of the main players in the field. Again, one of your young boys. Did you not go to Hibs or Hearts, one of the young boys? They started the season as well. And obviously,
I'm
Tony
not sure,
Watley.
Keir, but look, you're saying that Alexander's done a good job. Jimmy Duff makes a point. They've only won one game this year.
They have, aye. So he says. I agree. I'll agree with Jimmy, but they finished in the top six, and that was
finished
probably
in the top six. But if you look at the points, feel like fourth to like ninth.
There's not many, no. There's like a fag paper between everybody, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
But
so have Motherwell really been doing that good?
He's probably come in saying, I don't want to get relegated, I don't want to be in the playoffs for relegation. Mm-hmm. And that's, to be fair, he's finished in the top six, and you can see why Motherwell fans were happy. And Sunday, or Saturday, I should say. Sunday, I'm forgetting my days mixed up. I mean, we've struggled against them at Ibrox twice this season, to be fair. So, and they're difficult to play against. And I've seen them a few times, and I quite enjoy watching them because there's always goals in their games. Doesn't matter who they're playing.
Yeah.
William, your thoughts on Graham Alexander and the job he's doing?
Second half of the season, it's not been great. I think you have to say that. You know, they've obviously not won a hell of a lot of football games in the second half of the season.
And they've took points off us.
Yeah, but like the big thing for me is when you lose your top goal scorer in the January window to another team in the league, that isn't great, you know.
No.
And I think what they've tried to do is just like add goals for other parts of the team. It's probably like the guy Van Veen, I think, has done really well. And they've obviously got two quite quick wingers that get up and down the pitch. But I think at the end of the day, if somebody had offered Motherwell top six at the start of the season on the last game before the split, I think they would have took it. Well, Alexander, maybe people expected more from him because he came up for England, and obviously he's done a couple of decent jobs down there as well. So maybe they expected more of him. But I still think when you look at Motherwell and the fact they're a fan-owned club in the main, and the fact that Tony Watt moved to Dundee United for probably more money, that kind of shows you where Motherwell are and what like sort of money that Motherwell are offering players. So there's obviously a kind of threshold that they can't pass through, and even with the money they got for Turnbull, they're only able to bring in a certain quality of player at a certain age, and that's maybe where we have to see them, because at the end of the day, Hibs will pay more money than Motherwell, and Aberdeen will pay more money than Motherwell, so they should be above them in the league, but they're not, and that's all that matters at this time of the season.
And really quickly, because I didn't watch the highlights of this game, I couldn't bring myself to watch the highlights. I know this is meant to be an SPFL review, but I'm pretty sure most people can forgive me for this. But William, just really quickly, Celtic 7, St Johnstone 0. Didn't expect any different.
I probably didn't expect 7-0.
No, I didn't expect 7-0, but it was always going to be a Celtic win.
No, I think when you see how St Johnstone have been this season, it's not a huge surprise that Celtic won comfortably. St Johnstone will just write it off because they know that the next 5 games after the split are really the 5 games that matter to them. And I think St Johnstone are fine. I think St Johnstone will do enough to stay in the league this year.
But 6 points behind St Mirren?
Yeah, I mean, like, we were kind of talking about that before you actually kind of popped on earlier. I wouldn't be surprised if St Johnstone caught St Mirren. I really
think so.
Yeah.
Have they shown good enough form, Kerr, to do that?
St Johnstone.
Sorry, CGM. St Johnstone were unlucky.
it could have been 8. They've probably not, but St Mirren's not showed a lot of good form recently either. So I think it's only 2 games involved, and they're going to play each other, aren't they? So I think they could catch St Mirren, but I think St Mirren's just got enough. They weren't great yesterday, St Mirren, to be fair, but I think they've just got enough to stay away from St Johnstone, even if they get another draw or beat somebody. But I think they'll just escape the clutches of St Johnstone.
See, I disagree to a point. I think St Mirren
St
are a team
Mirren
that
free
can.
fall.
Yeah, look, my worry with St Mirren, and even looking at the weekend, I know, like, obviously, we scored some nice goals. Like, obviously, Aribo's goal, I don't know if too many teams would stop that. I know Andy Walker or whatever was apparently saying that somebody should get out and close them down, but Joe's done that a few times this season, that kind of goal. You could argue the marking should be better on Roof. And then I think we spoke last time around about the goals that Motherwell scored against St Mirren. Motherwell are not a great attacking threat at times. So the fact they were able to score the goals they did against St Mirren would worry me if I was a St Mirren fan. And that's my worry for them between now and the end of the season. If they can't stop conceding 2 and 3 goals in every game, they're in big trouble. And St Johnstone might just do enough to get above them. It's not going to be easy, clearly, because they're going to have to win at least 3 games. But I think St Mirren are in trouble, personally, if they can find at least one win out of this last 5 games.
And last question on the game, not on the game, on the manager, Callum Davidson, even if he manages to keep St Johnstone up and just say they finish 11th and they win their playoff, or if they go down, does he keep his job?
He probably does, aye. I think he's obviously given that trust him, and I think he does, to be fair. So I think if he gets him out of relegation problems, as in if they want to go in the playoffs or they finish third bottom, then he'll keep his job. If they get relegated, he might actually keep it as well, because I think him and the chairman have got a really good relationship.
And Jim's asked, please move on quickly, lads, and that's exactly what we are doing. Graham Ross says, look, Robinson is a horrible manager. You've touched on it very, very quickly there, William, because we're here to talk about the rest. We're not here to talk about Rangers, unfortunately. Stephen Robertson's come into St Mirren, not really made much of a difference, has he? In fact, has he actually made it worse?
I think the problem that Stephen Robinson's got is that Jim Goodwin had a certain way of playing, and it was obviously, but the main thing was to not concede goals with Jim Goodwin. That's his core kind of like way of playing. You'll probably find that with Aberdeen next year. They'll be much better defensively. They'll have a good core in the middle of the park to protect that back 4 or 5. Stephen Robinson's a bit more kind of open in terms of how he plays, and that's been their biggest failing since he took over. They're just conceding far too many goals. And I say that's my big worry. I mean, that's my local team at the end of the day. Like, I'm in the Paisley area, so I talk to a lot of guys that are St Mirren fans and stuff like that, and it's interesting. Some people haven't been impressed with him so far, and yet reportedly St Mirren paid a 6-figure fee to get him from Morecambe.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't work out, it's been an expensive mistake for St Mirren after they get the compensation for Jim Goodwin. Yeah, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. I think there is some good young managers in Scotland that wouldn't have cost that fee, that could have come in and did a better job than what Stephen Robinson's doing right now. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I've got no sympathy for any club who had one of their shops inside their stadium. Sorry, none. Moving on, Kerr, final game of the weekend. Fantastic result for Ross County, you have to say. He got up to Aberdeen and won. I know it was a penalty in the 86th minute, scored by Hungbo. Firstly, I kind of skipped the highlights a wee bit, right? So I kind of got towards the end of the game, and the commentator said maybe there should have been a penalty earlier, right? So I'll ask any of the two of you if you know about that. But firstly, Kerr, was it a penalty, the one that they got and scored from?
I probably was, Martin, to be fair.
I don't know. I'm not trying to defend Aberdeen, trust me, but I don't know if that's a penalty.
We've seen penalties given for less, we've seen penalties not given. Listen, it's Ross County. I wanted them to beat Aberdeen, so I'm happy with the penalty. He took it well, and I'm actually happy Aberdeen never get in the top 6.
I'm delighted.
It's not because of Jim Goodwin, it's not because of anything. I just think I don't like them. Basically, that's my reason. But no, I think they thought they deserve to be in the top 6, our fans and some of their players, and you see the way they play against us, which annoys me, and you can blame that a lot on Rangers as well. But the upper game against us, yet when they come to likes of playing maybe St Mirren, St Johnstone, Ross County, don't give I'm not saying they don't give the same effort, but the intensity's not there. And if I was an Aberdeen fan, I'd be angry with that, because you show it against Rangers, so show it every week. If you want to finish in the top 6 or finish third or whatever, don't just show it 4 times a season. So that would piss me off if I was an Aberdeen fan.
Should Aberdeen, Willie, though, did they have enough chances to win that game comfortably?
Look, they certainly had a few chances within the game, but at the end of the day, he can have 20 shots and go, but if none of them end up in the back of the net, and Ross County have one shot and their one shot ends up in the back of the net, you know what I mean? That's all that really matters. I mean, I disagree with Kerr. I don't think it is a penalty, right? And the reason I don't think it is because it's so close to him.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and I'll get back to what I say every week. Officials are so inconsistent.
Stop tapping that pen.
Sorry. One of them could have given that, and then the following week, a different referee wouldn't give it for exactly the same thing. So sometimes you're just unlucky. But see, at the end of the day, Aberdeen are not unlucky to be in the bottom 6.
Nope.
Because see, when you finish the season with 36 points, they amassed over 33 games. That is diabolical for a club.
It's criminal.
Yeah, especially for a club that over the summer basically refused money for Lewis Ferguson, who's a good player, right? And obviously, they went out there and they brought in a new manager and they recruited new players and they spent a lot of money on bringing, like, obviously, the guy Ramirez over. For them to finish in the bottom 6 is absolutely dire. But fair play to Ross County. They bring in a new manager over the summer. Yeah, again, he's another guy that's obviously, caused a bit of controversy with what he's done previous in his career.
Don't like him.
But at the end of the day, he's took a Ross County team up to 40 points and they've made it into the top 6. And some of their football in the second half of this season has been excellent. And a lot of that, as we've said numerous times on this podcast, is down to Regan Charles Cook and the guy Hungbo, who has been an excellent loan signing for them.
Yeah,
absolutely excellent. And I'm not a big Malky McCann fan myself, but at the end of the day, the guy's done a really good job. He's took them into the top 6, and basically they deserve to be there. And it probably says more about Hibs on 38 points and Aberdeen on 36 points that Ross County get more points than them over the season. And I don't know. I mean, like, see because of what Malky Mackay's done now, I wouldn't be surprised that the next manager loses his job if that's at a Hibs or another club, that he gets offered the next job. You know what I mean? Because that tends to be how it is in Scotland. And I'd imagine, like, so without being disrespectful to Ross County, if a big, like, sort of Edinburgh club like came calling for somebody like Malky Mackay, he would probably go.
Well,
to be fair, Willie, Malky Mackay's got a decent managerial record. It's just what he's done away for that. It's
you're 100% right, and look, I have to look past the fact that I dislike the man. Right, I've got zero time for him, even though I've never met him. He could be a lovely gentleman, but just because of his past indiscretions, I don't have a lot of time for him. But see, to put it into perspective, that job that he's done since going in at Ross County, taking them from where they were, how big an achievement is that? If we look past the man to get them where they are now, how big an achievement is that?
You probably say it's probably one of his better ones, considering how they started the season, like we said earlier. And they didn't start great, but he's got the guys playing for each other, playing for him, and they play good attacking football. They don't just come out the park and have 2 banks or 4 and think, we're going to hit in the break. They've got some really talented players in the team. We've mentioned Charles Cook and Hungbo. They've got a big boy up front who's a nuisance to play against, who draws a lot of attention. Might not score a lot of goals, a big boy, but I can't remember his name now, but he's a nuisance. Jordan White, and he's a nuisance. And they've got Callahan in the middle of the park who just runs about. They've got Tolson. They've got another boy who used to be able to play at Thistle, Blair, kind of Spittle, I think it is. So they've got a few decent players in the team, but they signed the big boy Baldwin, didn't they, for Sunderland, who I thought was a decent defender on a free. And I'm not saying he's the best football player, but he's just a big defender. He'll come in and header stuff away, kick it away. And sometimes that's what you need for Scottish football, just somebody who can defend first and doesn't look at playing the game that great, just defends. And that's what Ross County need. And they've got Cook and Hungbo who are very talented. I know a lot of Rangers fans are starting to look at Charles Cook. I know we've spoken about him that well.
Yep.
And the bonus for you, if he was free, we could bring him in. Is he better than Sakala? He probably is. Is he good enough for the first team? I don't know, but
Well,
for somebody
now,
who's
he's good enough
free,
for the first team,
for
Kev, 'cause
somebody
he's
who's
not
for
doing it
somebody who's
right.
free, you would bring him in because
Aye.
his numbers are great. He's very talented. He's still learning the game, and why would you not go for him?
See, for the fact, William, the catchment area, right? Dingwall. No many people want to go and live in Dingwall. The budget, the fan base, the size of stadium, and putting aside my feelings towards Malky Mackay, is that up there quite possibly for where he took over for a Manager of the Year award, or is he close to that?
Yeah, look, I mean, when you think how poorly they started the season to where they are now, he's done an exceptional job. Ross County are always going to struggle to attract players because of where they are. There's obviously not a lot in the local area, really, and that's one of the issues. But I mean, he's certainly galvanised that team and got the best out of that team. They've found a way of playing that allows guys like Regan Cook and Hungbo to have that freedom on the pitch to help the opposition. They've got a kind of core of players that play most weeks who know how to play the game, who know how to defend, who know how to sort of get involved in the battle, shall we say. And you need players like that. But at the end of the day, when you look at that Aberdeen team and you look at the Ross County team, you would still say that Aberdeen have more than enough about them. But again, that sums up Aberdeen this season. I mean, they've got Joe Lewis in goals, who's still a really good goalie. They've got Declan Gallagher. They've got David Bates, Ross McCrory, Lewis Ferguson, Christian Ramirez, and a young boy that I really like. I mean, and I put it in the chat earlier.
Yeah, you wanted to bring him up, yeah.
Yeah, I think the boy Connor Barron's a smashing player. And he was, obviously, a few of the guys that I go to the academy games were raving about him after the game at Ibrox. He thought, a few of the boys thought that he was Aberdeen's best player that night. And I can't disagree. And I think for a kid that's only 19, who's been out in loan at Brecon and at Celtic Hearts earlier this season, he's come back to Aberdeen and looked like one of their best players. But then, from Aberdeen's point of view, is that a concern that a 19-year-old who was out in loan at Celtic in the first half of the season then comes back and then looks like one of your best players? Yeah, look, that's a worry, because that's maybe where Aberdeen are. And it'll be interesting to see what Goodwin does in the summer, because it might be that some of the guys that were signed under glass won't want to play under Goodwin, and it might be that guys like sort of Ramirez moves on, and so do some of these other guys that Glass brought in, and it might be the right time to cash in on Lewis Ferguson, because the kid's probably looking at it now and thinking, I don't want another season like this, and if I can leave and earn more money and move to a better league, I'll probably just take it right now.
Well, you're talking about what might Jim Goodwin do next season, Kerr, right? Is there any possibility? Now, Aberdeen are only 6 points ahead of St Johnstone. I know they've got a 16 goal difference, right? I think Aberdeen are on -4, and then it's -20 for St Mirren and -23 for St Johnstone. Is there any chance Aberdeen get dragged into that 11th spot?
Don't think so, Martin, but it'd be fantastic if it did. That'd be really good, that, wouldn't it? But I think they'll have enough. But they will be probably looking at in hindsight just in case, because you can never say never. But I mean, I've seen some of the things on social media that Goodman's getting a bit of abuse for Aberdeen fans already, which is it really his fault? Probably not. But I know a lot of St fans didn't like him either way he played football, so we'll see what happens come the season. But I think he's got a job there, and I think probably the money they spent on Glass and his staff, and especially in Scott Brown's, backfired big time, and I think it could cost them, because I think the budget for next season could be down unless, like Willie says, they maybe sell a couple of their better players.
I know, what a fantastic end to an extremely mediocre career for Scott Brownie. Final point to you, William, and then we'll finish up, because that's an hour and 15 minutes.
I know, it's crazy.
I know you've answered it in the comments, but I'll ask you anyway. Realistically, what could Aberdeen get for Lewis Ferguson? His value must have dropped, surely, with a league position and his performances this season.
Yeah, looking at the end of the day, it's another year that's off his contract as well. So, the closer you get to the end of your contract, it's normal that your value drops. I think last summer they would have probably been looking at 4, 5, maybe 6 million And I know people can laugh at that, but Lewis was a big player for Aberdeen last year, and he was on the cusp of the Scotland squad, and a lot of talk that there was clubs from abroad looking at him. Now I think he's got 2 years left in his contract. If you let a player run it down to the last year, the player's going to walk away for free, isn't he?
He's not going to sign a new contract, is he?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you allow it to run down to the final year, which would be the summer of 2023, the guy's basically a free agent because he's going to walk away at that point. So I think he's probably around the 2.5 million mark. And I think they could maybe sneak a little bit more out of it, but it would be like add-ons and maybe a sell-on fee potentially, something like that. It's crazy how quickly like sort of values come and go in football, and that's the scary thing. Sometimes you're better cashing in
like
the money there. Yeah, look, it is, mate. At the end of the day, I went back to Nisbet. I think we spoke about Nisbet, didn't we, Kerr, a few weeks ago? Saying that, I mean, what was that, like sort of 4 million Sunday was offering for him? Like 3.5, 4 million? It's probably not worth half that now.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And it's the same with Doig. Like, Doig was probably a £5 million player a year ago. He's probably worth less than half that now. Because even you're in a team that's struggling, it then becomes more difficult to then get that like market value. And this is the problem in Scotland. I think, I get why teams want to keep their best players, but I think Aberdeen definitely missed a trick last year by not selling Lewis Ferguson.
I'll ask you a question. Would you take him to Rangers?
Nope. I've been consistent on that for about 3 years now. No, Matt, I wouldn't take him.
You know what? See if we can keep certain players fit next year, I wouldn't be against it. But it would need to be at a fee that's reasonable to us. And I don't think Aberdeen will do business with Rangers on that front. And I think that's where the deal completely stops. You know,
who would you rather have in the team, right? Lewis Ferguson or Alex Lowry?
But it's not as much that because like they're two totally different players.
Lewis plays different, aye.
So you're talking about.
I know, but I just want you to say Lowry and we can move on.
Oh, it's no brainer. I mean, like Alex is probably like one of the most technical, like sort of creative players at the academy level. So I mean, it's a no-brainer. We want to see our own players playing. But I do believe that Lewis will move on this summer, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes. And I don't think Aberdeen have got any option other than to sell him, because if they don't, he'll basically just run down his contract and leave for free.
I think he would have something to offer if he came to Rangers. Would he be a first-team starter? I'm not sure. But I think there's something there. He's got a bit of dig. He's good in there. He can move the ball. He can tackle. And he's got a bit of aggression, which some of the players don't have. Yeah. But I don't know if I would pay $2.5 million for him.
Oh, that's it, Kerr. Like, it's all about... And plus, as I said earlier, I just don't think Aberdeen want to do business with Rangers. And I think it's been shown in the past that unless Rangers would be willing to throw the kitchen sink at it, which I know we won't do, that it's not going to happen. And I think Hibs have shown that as well, that they don't really want to do business, as have other clubs. And I just feel that the only way Lewis Ferguson would end up at Rangers is if he got into the last year of his contract and basically said to them, look, I'm going to Rangers and that's it. Because other than that, Aberdeen are still in the ascendancy here. They still have him under contract for 2 years, so they have the right to sell him this summer. When it gets to next summer and he falls into his last year, they've lost all control, just like we've lost all control with Goldson.
What about if they sell him Scott Wright instead of the kitten? Would they maybe swap him for that too?
Well, Alan wants to know if we can give them Stephen Wright. I don't know who Stephen Wright is, but
he used to be a fullback for us.
He was a good fullback today, Stephen Wright. Really
right, okay, gents, that will do us an hour and 20 minutes. I apologise, guys. I know if JD was hosting, it'd probably be done in an hour because he knows what he's talking about. Thank you to everybody watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please do like and subscribe. And also, let's see if this is something you enjoy, but you don't particularly enjoy watching the rest of the games. See when this is finished, come back into the comments, let us know what you think, and let us know if there's wee things you want us to add in. You know, we're all about improving and making the shows better. That's what we want to do. So please like and subscribe and all that on Facebook, Twitter, follow, retweet, in-tweet, out-tweet. I don't know what it is. Big thank you to William and Kerr. We'll be back tomorrow night. Brian's hosting for our weekly flagship. I think that's the going about word now, podcast. And then, of course, we'll have a preview show on Thursday before the European game, a reaction after the European game, and then all the build up to the Old Firm as well. So a big thank you for watching. Plenty of content to come, so keep tuned until we speak to you soon. Bye for now.